Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our live call. I'm Steve Porcaro, and with me today is Barry Rubin, as usual. Hi, Barry. So, what we're going to do is we're going to be jumping right in as we start our presentation. We want to take a couple minutes to go over some housekeeping, do a quick introduction for those of you who we don't know on the call, and then we'll jump right into our Q&A and take it from there. So right from the get-go, we're going to jump in, share a little bit of the, I think, Barry, you should be able to see my screen now at this point. And then we're going to jump right in with a little housekeeping. And the housekeeping really is for our recording purposes and quick introduction. At this time, very simply, our goals for today, we want to make sure that everybody leaves with the answers that they have for their questions, maybe one or two tidbits. And then we want to make sure that everyone gets more of the information, but also how to contact us for further questions. This is an ongoing presentation. It's not going to happen all the time in terms of getting all your questions answered, but this is a process. So we'll do a couple housekeeping tips. We'll do a quick intro. We'll jump right in. So right from the get-go, if you're joining us live, there's a toolbar on the bottom of your screen. There's a button there to chat and send us a message. There's a button there you can really ask your questions as well underneath the chat button, as well as raise your hand if you want to answer a question. If you're joining us by phone, unfortunately, I don't know of any chat button. But what we can do is you can unmute yourself, *6, if you'd like to ask a question, or you can join in with your smartphone or on the computer and submit a question that way. Also, we do record these sessions, so if you have to jump off, not a problem, we understand. Feel free to submit your questions via email if you have to jump off, if you're driving beforehand, and we do get questions via our email that we'll try to answer as well. Barry, anything else you want to that we need to share, please?
Just for you, Steve, very quickly, your screen is showing all 5 open windows, not only the slide, so it's very small because everything is visible.
Interesting. That is very interesting. Okay.
There you go. Look? There you go.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, that would have been a good chat message. All right, good. So we'll go right into our quick introduction. Again, many of you we know through our LinkedIn groups. Some of you are new, so thank you again for joining us. Again, my name is Steve Porcaro. I own a number of groups on LinkedIn. I've been there since 2008, the end of 2007, but I joined LinkedIn like many people to stay in touch with people in the medical device community when I started my own business, but also to stay in touch with all the people that I worked with my previous military OR background and my orthopedic device background. I spent 20 years out in the field selling orthopedics, everything from the neck down, I like to say. And then I started a coaching and training company back in 2005. And LinkedIn was a great way to reach out and build a community and meet new people. One of the people I met was Barry. So I'm going to keep this short. Barry, why don't you introduce yourself to the group, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I met Steve in 2008, 2008 when I got laid off from a startup, and it was a match made in heaven. We had a lot in common. We had, we kind of filled spots in each other's universe that worked well together. Steve's main expertise is in hospitals and large surgical environments, and my area of expertise is private practice. So it sort of brought the world of medical devices together from both ends of the spectrum. And that's me. I'm in ophthalmology. I've been in ophthalmology since 2004.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Barry. So, and I forgot to forward Barry's slide as we were talking, so welcome. So one of the things we wanted to do was really talk about questions that you have. I know we have a number of people on the call. One of the things, we do get questions answered, and we try to answer those questions throughout the presentation. And what I want to do is I'll throw those questions out now. We're not going to really answer them right now, but we'll try to answer them as we go on through the presentation. So some of the questions I got: how do I manage myself, not time? Because the big joke is, you know, everyone talks about time management, but the reality is I need to manage myself better. How do I say no when appropriate? Especially around the holidays, it gets pretty crazy, and this comes up on a regular basis. I keep overextending. I keep trying to please my customers, my coworkers. How do I say no? How do I prioritize urgent versus important items? And again, depending on the type of business or sales you're in, that's always a challenge. And then when do I need to clarify expectation with my team and coworkers? And it's interesting, and this comes up on a regular basis. If you're leading a team or if you're part of a team, everyone has a job description, but it almost seems fluid. There are a couple items there. Everyone understands what the top 2 or 3 things are, but sometimes they forget what the smaller things are. So we have to make sure we understand what our clarifications are. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as we go through the call, but I want to really lead off with other questions from people in the audience. Now, if you are online, you could submit a question through the Q&A system right there in the bottom of your screen, or the chat system, and Barry and I will do our best to pick that up and read it. If you're on the phone, I don't know how we can notify us about a question other than we can take you off. So, or shoot us a text or an email and let us know that you have a question. So who would like to lead off with a question or a burning question to get us going for today? All right, Barry, can you see my sharing screen right now still? All right, so while we're waiting for people to submit their questions, I'll answer the how do I manage myself, not time question, because that's one of the things that there's a million answers to that, but very simply, it's really learning what your parameters are. It's interesting when we talk about managing ourselves, how much time, how much energy, what can I take? Now, this is an interesting question because the person who sent this in didn't talk about if it was at work or at home. So I'm going to straddle this and really use it for both. But the interesting thing is we all have the same amount of time per day, 24 hours. The interesting thing is, years ago, I seemed to be a little bit quicker. I could accomplish more tasks in the same amount of time, but sometimes I wasn't as thorough. Maybe I wasn't using technology. On one hand, we talk about email helping us and texting and cell phones, allowing us to communicate better or quicker, faster. Sometimes I think all this static comes in and overwhelms us. So one of the things that I've done over time, when I talk about managing myself, is I try to give myself 24 hours to answer non-urgent email. Granted, nobody's in surgery, no one's in the emergency room, it's not life or death. And if it's a routine email, usually 1 business day, I try to get back to it. In the past, and we always talked about great customer service. I would stop what I was doing to answer an email, but then I was taking time away from the things I needed to do. And the same thing went for voicemails as well. People would call and I would say, oh, my time is, I want to make sure I have the best customer service. The reality is I had to learn to block out time for myself first. And that allowed me to take care of my clients, my team, and then I would go on to other information requests that people were looking for. So managing yourself starts with doing one thing and helping that stick, whether it's coming up with a better organizational system. And again, now we have smartphones. We can certainly use that information, but I use a combination of a notepad, even in front of my computer, to jot down ideas so I don't have to remember them. And then when I'm on the road, I have a tablet, a notebook, a phone, almost too much information. So I try to keep it simple sometimes because I feel I can get overwhelmed with that management system. Any thoughts, questions on quick tips on managing yourself? It's going to come up throughout, but we'll focus on that. All right, so questions while we're waiting. We do have somebody on the phone. I'm not sure if they have a question. Let's see if our phone caller, I could unmute them. Barry, can you hit the unmute button there, please? Hi, we're just checking in with you. Good morning, good afternoon. See if you have a question you'd like to share with us. If you're on the phone, yay or nay. If not, we'll move on.
Are you reaching out to me?
I believe we are. Welcome.
Okay, yeah, I kind of was like not on board at the beginning. My name's Aaliyah Stelly. I'm just kind of tagging along on the phone calls. I just recently reached out to Steve and joined the group. I'm just kind of here for just some insight into this industry, kind of just like building up a foundation to maybe pursue this in the future.
Great, Aaliyah, thank you. And I did receive your email, so.
Perfect. I'm very happy to be on board.
Excellent. So while you're here, let's take this time. I know you had a few questions. What would be most helpful to you today?
Give me 1 second. Let me step out real fast.
Sure.
Sorry about that. I wasn't really prepared to speak or say anything, so I was kind of in a room of a lot of things going on. I think the biggest thing that I can gain today is just kind of hearing what you guys kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis as far as this goes, and really just hearing a lot of your insight. I'm very, very new to this, but I've kind of been pursuing branching out into the medical device industry for a while now. But just kind of getting my feet wet and just hearing a lot of what you guys experience is really helpful for me.
All right, great. Well, yes, it is. I wish I could say there was a typical day, but again, Barry mentioned it, and I don't know if you were on for that. Barry spent a lot of her time working in offices, physicians' offices. I spent a lot of my time working in the operating room. So there is really a continuum of service and sales when you go out there, think about the medical device field. But you're on the right boat. The more you listen and the more you understand what's happening, the more information that will be helpful to you going forward.
For sure. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, anything you guys can share with me as far as advice and kind of branching out and getting your feet into the industry, I definitely appreciate it. I am on board with the Medical Sales College right now. It's still kind of up in pursuit to see whether that's a go or not, but that is kind of in the ramp up right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think all right, so let's take a breather here because no, that's as I mentioned in my email, when that program first started, they were guaranteeing jobs for people,
Right.
and they had to stop that for a bunch of different reasons. But it is a good program for the right person in the right job. And I'll just share this with you. A couple things to consider. Every medical device company will have to train you in their proprietary information on their products and services. So
Correct.
in some way, not duplication as much as it will allow you to learn about the field going in. However, you are paying a lot of money for some of that information that you'll get training when you start anyways.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, and again, I've actually worked with clients after they've been through the medical sales school, because at the time, and I know it's still focused a lot on orthopedics and biologics, spine, total joint, that's great, but what if you don't want to go into one of those areas? And that's not, because most of us don't know what we don't know.
Correct. Yeah.
That's like trying to be a professional athlete. And if you think about what we did as children, playing all these different sports or playing different musical instruments, our parents would take us, but at the end of the day, it was try to get exposure to see which one you would excel at. And certain sales products are like that. When I use the analogy, I think I sent you a link to a webinar where I talk about professional athletes. Sales professionals are the same way. You can be a professional golfer, professional bowler, an NBA or a hockey player. You're all professional athletes, just have a different skill set, different aptitude for a different sport. So one of the challenges is if you got into orthopedics and it really wasn't what you wanted to do, you were kind of stuck in that role. So I think they may be doing a better job in terms of finding out what type of sales you want. But I think I would ask good questions about what you want to do going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that a lot, because that's kind of a lot of the questions that I've been thinking about. And for now, I'm still doing a whole lot of research. And you're right, I really have no idea what I'd like to focus on. Orthopedics has obviously been a target point for me lately, just because that's the program that I signed up. So I've been doing a lot of research in that area. But I'm going to do a lot more research in off the air. I'd love for us to maybe speak, one-on-one and get more of insight from you moving forward, if that would be possible.
Sure. I'll send you a link to my online calendar, and we'll find a time to catch up, because unfortunately, there is no one size fits all. And I do work with people who are transitioning, but again, think about going to the restaurant with a lot of your friends. You can go in the same restaurant and everyone's eating something different just because of their personal taste. And sales is like that as well. What works for me may not be what you're looking for. And if you can be strategic, and I don't know your time frame or your goals at the end of the day, just be a little strategic and measure twice, cut once, and that will be helpful. So, all right, I'll send that link out to you shortly, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to go. Do you have any other questions while we're waiting before I go to another question?
I think that's it, Steve. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. So the next question I want to talk about is how do I say no when appropriate? This comes up a little bit when we have caregivers, sales professionals who don't want to let customers down, when we have other people that we don't want to say no to. And again, this could be at home, this could be at work. And the interesting thing is, when we're talking about saying no, is it a definitive, no, I'm not going to help you, or no, I can't help you at this time, or no, I don't have it at that price, or no, you may not be the right person for this job? I think we have to clarify when we say no. One of the things that I've run into this, I know Barry has too, is that we have clients that we want to provide excellent service, premium service. And at some point, we have to balance our time of caregiving for one customer or client and then focus on taking care of everybody, our whole entire territory or area. So one of the things that I don't want to say no, I'll just say yes with stipulations, right? With parameters. How can I say yes to somebody, but giving myself some leeway? And I'll just share a quick example. When I was out in the field in orthopedics, we provided a lot of technical support. We were on a pager, and then we moved to our cell phones. Our customers would call us on the weekends, evenings, holidays, and say, hey, Steve, I need help with this surgery, or we ran out of something that's back ordered. Any way that you can help us. And 9 times out of 10, sometimes I had a couple of the pieces of the equipment, I would loan them until it got off back order, or sometimes in a pinch, I would borrow from another hospital that I knew that had sufficient inventory, and I would loan it to them. But I would only do that on special occasions. And I did have a customer call and say, hey, Steve, I'm out of guide wires for this set. And it was, I don't know, a $20 item, non-urgent. It was non-life threatening. It was more of the materials person seeing an empty slot on their shelf, and they wanted to fill it. So I didn't say no as much as, let me see what I can do. Let me check with the hospital. Give me a couple days, and then I'll get back to you. So again, my modus operandi was to jump in there, get the information of the product, and run it over to them. This was not a patient on the table, a patient going to the ER or OR, as much as more of an inventory management. So that's one of the areas where I had to learn to say no, because unfortunately I was so focused on servicing, sometimes I would forget to sell. So I had to step back and block off time for servicing and taking care of back orders, paperwork, collecting purchase orders. I needed to focus more time on going out there and being able to sell. Barry, do you have any experience with saying no from customer service issues that you'd like to share? Nope.
Yeah, I love the stories that you told, because something that's very, very crucial in self-management and time management is understanding sense of urgency, because sometimes what we think is urgent is not what is actually urgent, or what other people perceive as urgent. So the same thing happens in reverse with your customers. And to your point, when you say, let me check on that and I'll get back to you, give me a couple of days. That way it reminds the person very gently that yes, they are important as a customer and you will take care of it, but it's not urgent. They're not, the person is not on the table. Just because those screws are missing on the shelf doesn't mean you have to leave a surgery that you're assisting another customer with to go fix it. And a lot of times we get so wrapped up in customer service, we want to help them, but you do need to put on the brakes and assess where that request fits in the big scheme of things. And in the heat of the moment, when somebody's calling you in their panic, the knee-jerk reaction is to help them. But you do need to slow down and assess, and that's really important. I fell victim to that all the time. I'm one of those people that I can't stand a full inbox. I have to get through it. And so I read a tip once, and it was great. It said to just to prioritize your email box 3 times a day: in the morning when you get started, before, after, or during lunch, whichever is easiest for you, and at the end of the day. Triage the ones that are important and quick response to the ones that are going to take a while, but at least acknowledge that you got their email. So you are acknowledging them, which will assuage their sense of urgency, because they did get an answer, but you don't have the answer to the question yet. So it's all about managing their expectations by reframing their prioritization skills.
Yeah, no, thank you, Barry. It's a great story. And the funny thing is, I have a bookshelf full of books on tips how to do it, but everything gets thrown out of the window when that urgent call. And again, when you're out in the field and you're in the medical device field, if there's a case and things happen over time, people forget to order equipment. They ran out in the middle of surgery. I mean, I've heard, over 20 plus years in the operating room, I've heard it all. And, you're going to do your best. Now, the funny thing is, in the winter, I remember first snow of the season, 6-8 inches of snow had fallen, got a call middle of the night, going out. I slid into a curb, taking a corner, because I was such in a rush. And one of the things and this reminded me of what we need to do. And Barry and I think we spoke about this on a call a while back about being on an airline, and when the oxygen mask drops, you have to put your mask on first. Well, the thing is, you're no good or use to anybody if you don't make it to their hospital safely. So one of the things after getting in that accident, I realized that I needed to slow down, drive safely, and get there in a way that would allow me to be safe. It's very, very, very simple to think about, but we think if we move things in a rush, or if we're moving things quickly, we're saving time. Doesn't always work that way. I think methodical, careful, no different than what we do in a hospital setting. We have to do the same things for us. And then the last thing on this subject, when to say no when appropriate. I know there are some people on the call who may listen to this who may not appreciate this, but I remember telling my manager one day, and he's right to a certain extent, you need to be in front of people to make sales. So, you want to spend as much time in the field. And I said, you're right. When I was a young sales professional, I wanted to do that. But I'll tell you what, after a little bit of time, I was behind in my paperwork, my reports, my planning. And I started thinking, maybe I need to take time, office time, admin time, to prepare to go out and do my job. And the thing is, it was easy when I was younger, before I had children, before I got married, to say, I can do all this stuff on the weekend. But guess what? This is this work-life balance. No other professional does that. And what I started doing was taking a couple hours of admin time, especially, I was thinking I still have my tape gun when I used to send packages out through FedEx. I needed time to ship back samples, supplies, equipment, and that can only be done during working hours. So taking administration time, prep time, office time to prepare to go out and sell is fine. It goes back to Abe Lincoln, this great saying, if he had 8 hours to chop wood, what would he do? And he gave the answer. So I would spend 7 hours sharpening my axe, my saw. And I think sometimes we need to say no to prepare ourselves to go out there and sell, to be successful and to be effective. So, all right. Any other questions before we move on? We're going to wrap it up in a few more minutes. I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance who's on the call. All right, we have another person on the phone. area code 949. I don't know if they have a question or they're just hanging out. Or if you're on the computer, if you want to ask a question, you can send a message through the computer. If not, we'll jump in. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap it up is this last question about how to prioritize urgent versus important. Again, this comes up, and the criteria, it can be static, no doubt about it. The question is, what does it mean to you, urgent versus important? Everybody means, or at least if you think about Stephen Covey, you know, what do we talk about? What's urgent, what's important? Very simply, yes, it's urgent when we need to get equipment there before the surgery starts. It's urgent when the patient is on the table and they're starting surgery. It's important we get it there, you know, maybe a day or two before. It's important that we do our expense report, our paperwork, but urgent usually means it needs to be done in the next foreseeable time frame or future, right? I don't say life or death, but close enough. It needs to be done in the next hour, the next 24 hours, depending on what we're talking about. It's a fire that needs to be put out. Important to me means it gets moved up to my priority on my daytime or my planner, that it's something that I need to do because it's moving to that point. If I don't do something important, it will become something urgent. And this is something that, again, very simply, I run into. Barry, what's your definition of urgent versus important? Because I know it looks like you have something to say.
I was just nodding in agreement because I think the statement that you just made was spot on. You know, some things are important, but if you don't do them, they become urgent. That's brilliant. So it's just about figuring out that dividing line. What would happen if I let this wait until tomorrow? Because sometimes we don't think about that and we classify it as urgent, but if you step back and say, could this wait until tomorrow? Yes. Could it wait until next week? Not a chance. But if it can wait until tomorrow, then it's important, but not urgent. So if you can find a question for yourself that demarcates that delineation, then that's the question that you ask when something comes in. And the question will be different depending on what part of the industry you're in or what part of your work it comes from. But once you have that question, you ask that to yourself and it will help you figure it out, I think.
All right, well, thank you, Barry. So the interesting thing here, I was doing this presentation about time management, and I love this quote. I took the 7 P's of procrastination and I tweaked it a little bit. Proper preparation and planning of priorities prevents personal procrastination. It's funny how when we talk about procrastination and time management, there are many things I put off until the following day or week. Work-life balance means different things to different people. But the funny thing is, at the end of the day, if we're not putting ourselves first, we can't help our customers, our coworkers, our team, our family. And I think taking that time to recharge and prepare to go out and sell, because it is I don't want to say it's a war, but it's a battle, right? We have to go out there and be prepared. And I think part of this whole concept, some of these questions come back to personal preparation, planning, prioritizing, and how do we overcome procrastination? Different things for different people. But I think what we'll do is we'll probably come back to this after the first of the year, because it's one of these things that I think pop up on a regular basis, right? How come I feel like I'm busy, but I'm not productive? And again, that's a whole topic for another time. So if you have any questions on personal productivity or work-life balance or time management, feel free to send those in to us. Would love to answer that. We're going to be wrapping it up. It's bottom of the hour. I want to thank you all for attending. For those of you who are listening, I want to remind everyone we'll meet next Tuesday at 1 p.m. The holiday season is upon us, and this is the time of year when it starts to get cold that I have this nice Santa-looking hat that I bring out, keeps my head warm and puts me in the spirit. And maybe we'll even change our scene backdrop and get out there in the winter wonderland. I am going camping this Saturday. It is going to be a little cold. Maybe I'll bring some pictures back. But I think that's it for the moment. Barry, anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Steve, you are braver than me to go camping in the middle of the winter.
It's not even winter yet, is it?
Well, it is. It's just not the coldest day of the year.
Well, winter starts when? December 19th, right?
Oh, I didn't know there was, the solstice. I didn't realize
Right.
that was the beginning. Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
yes, it's kind of warm out there. Usually come February when we're camping, it gets cold, but we'll see. I'll see if I can take some pictures and share them with us next week. So in the meantime, have a great week, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.